it is with deep sadness and heavy. No, no. And heavy heart that we are coming to the terms with the fact that our daughter has drowned. This is incredibly difficult for us to process. We kindly ask you to keep our daughter in your prayers. We still have two young children to care for, and they are at a very tender age. In light of this, we respectfully request some space, time, and privacy to focus on healing us and helping our children recover as we try to move forward with our lives.
What's up, guys? So about a week ago, I did a video reporting on a high-profile story here in Dominican Republic regarding an American college student who went missing here in Punta Cana at a resort called Rio. This story made headlines, it drew eyeballs, and even criticism to the Dominican Republic, having everyone asking, is it safe to visit Dominican Republic? And everybody, or some of you guys already know how I feel about safety here in Dominican Republic. But honestly, a lot of those questions came from a group of people, mainly Americans. Those people had the unmitigated gall to question the safety of a country when in that country, you can't even go to the grocery store, a concert, you can't even go to worship in a church. You can't even take your kids to school without a thought in the back of your mind that you may not even come back home due to all the violence and mass shootings and killings in the United States. But we're gonna leave that there and we're gonna get into the story that we came here to talk about. So for those who have been living under the rock, let me catch you up as to what was going down or has been going down in the Dominican Republic for the last, say, 2 to 3 weeks. So I'm gonna give you a quick backstory as to what happened in this case. So on March 6th, around 4:15 a.m., Sudiksha Konaki and 7 other people were seen on surveillance heading to the beach. 5 of those people were said to be her girlfriends, and 2 of those people were guys who were said that they had just met in the resort since arriving. At 5:55 a.m., surveillance shows 6 people leaving the beach. 5 of them were her girlfriends and 1 was a guy, leaving us to believe that Sudiksha and another guy was still at the beach, and that guy's name is Joshua Reeby. Now, at 9:55 a.m., surveillance shows Joshua leaving the beach shirtless and shoeless, but Sudiksha was never seen on surveillance leaving the beach. At 4 p.m. that afternoon, about 12 hours after Sudiksha was last seen heading to the beach, her friends reported her missing. This led to an extensive search for Sudiksha. Joshua was said to be investigated and questioned thoroughly, and although he was never a suspect, he was just a person of interest. And during his questioning, his claim was, yes, he and Sudiksha was at the beach, a wave came in, hit them. As the wave was coming back in, it sucked them back into the sea. That he tried to save her and that he helped her up and saw her walking diagonally out of the water. In the meantime, he was sick and started to vomit. He called her name. She didn't answer, which led him to believe that she got her stuff and left. And he then goes to a beach chair and falls asleep. That was his story. And although they confiscated his passport and did not allow him to leave while they were doing their investigation, he was never charged. And after 11 days of investigating and trying to get answers surrounding this mysterious disappearance of Sudiksha, her parents told the Dominican authorities to rule her death by drowning. And at this point, the search was called off. Sudiksha is now said to be dead, and Joshua Reeby, he walks free. Now, Joshua has already been convicted in the court of public opinion, and to me, rightfully so. He was the last person she was seen with. And I've heard people say, don't speculate and assume that this young man is guilty because we don't know what happened at the beach. And they're partially true. We don't know what happened in the beach. But what we do know, that whatever happened points to him. Now, I wouldn't go as far as saying that he intentionally did something to this girl, because I don't have anything to prove that. But I would go as far to say is that he knows what happened. Now, if me and someone was seen on surveillance, sloppy drunk, stumbling into my building, into my apartment, and then on surveillance, this person is never seen to have left my apartment, and then all of a sudden comes up missing. Now listen, that doesn't mean I did anything to him, but it damn sure doesn't mean that I'm in the clear either. But for this case, I honestly believe that we haven't learned anything additional about what happened from the time she went missing up until when they closed this case. So I still have questions that I would love to know the answers on. Not to mention, I would like to even know if they even asked these questions during the investigation. So let's start with number one. What evidence, if any, was found that supports the claim that Sudiksha drowned? Besides Joshua's claim, is there anything else that indicated that she drowned? Or was this just a conclusion that they drew based on lack of evidence of foul play? I would like to know that. And the next one is, were there any inconsistencies in the timeline and statements made by Joshua? Did his accounts as to what happened match up to any of the available evidence? And if so, was it investigated thoroughly? The next one was, why wasn't Joshua Reeby considered a suspect? Why was he only considered a person of interest by authorities when he was the last person she was seen with? I would like to know the answer to that. And the next one is, what did the 5 friends say? What was their version as to what happened? How did they characterize Joshua? And were their statements investigated thoroughly? Now, I heard that her friends were questioned, but none of their statements were made public. Not to my knowledge. I haven't seen it. If you guys have seen it, drop a comment below. I would like to know what their version is as to what happened. Also, what about Joshua's friend? He was with them. What was his version as to what happened? Why wasn't his statement made public? Again, I don't recall seeing the statements of Joshua's friend or Sudiksha's friend. If you guys heard their statement or seen it, drop it in the comment below. I like to see that. And another one is, did any of the hotel staff or security see Joshua sleeping on the beach early that morning? And if they did anybody come forward to report it? Because this detail would be very important in this investigation, because I have a hard time believing that nobody's seen this guy on the beach. Because if you've been to a resort, most people know that early in the morning, there are workers out there on the beach raking up seaweed, cleaning off the sand or whatever, cleaning the beach chairs. And a lot of times the guests run down to the beach just to secure them one of their the beach chairs. They just put a towel on it. They'll get up at 6 o'clock in the morning just to run down to the beach and put their towel on so nobody gets their spot. Nobody's seen Joshua sleeping in a beach chair that morning. I find that hard to believe. Also, is there any other surveillance footage or possible eyewitnesses that may have seen what happened before her disappearance? Also, was there evidence in Sudiksha's phone that may have helped in this investigation? Something that can reveal moments leading up to maybe what happened prior to her disappearance. Were there text messages, phone records, social media activity as to what her state of mind was or who she was in contact with right before her disappearance? What about Joshua's phone records? Was his phone confiscated and checked? Was it on his person? That way they can check his location to see where he was between the time he was last seen going to the beach at 4:15 to when he showed up again at 9:15. Was his phone on his person? Because they can ping your location if you have your phone on you. That'll be interesting to know. And the next one is, did they investigate suspicious behavior or foul play from him? Now, was there any indication that he had any motive or was involved in her disappearance that wasn't fully considered? And this one here to me was very important. Why was the search abruptly called off after 11 days without any definitive evidence as to what happened to her. Were resources and efforts exhausted, or did investigators feel like the case was just too difficult to solve? And what contributed to ending the investigation with so many unanswered questions? Was there political pressure? Financial pressure? What was it for it to just end like that? The next one was, how transparent was the investigation to Sudiksha's parents? Were they kept informed of key developments? Was there transparency to them? I would like to know that. Another question I was thinking too, did local authorities face any challenges while doing this investigation? Maybe like language barriers, culture, behaviors? Was it things like that that may have been a challenge to them as to trying to get the right answers during the investigation? I think these additional questions highlight the complexity surrounding Sudiksha's disappearance. These are just some of the things that immediately popped up in my mind. I have other questions, and if we can get answers to some of these questions, maybe the family can have some closure. Now, again, maybe they're just not telling the public everything. Maybe they've asked all these questions, but I know that's something that I would like to know regarding this story. I don't know if we'll ever know what happened, or even if Sudiksha's family will get any type of closure that they need regarding the death of their daughter. But one thing I am most certain about is that Joshua knows what happened. Was it an intentional drowning, or was it an accidental death due to intoxication? Only he knows. But I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't believe his intentions were to come here on spring break and leave with a body. I just don't believe that was his intentions. I mean, who does that? Who thinks, hey, I'm gonna go to Dominican Republic and catch a body? I just don't believe that's what happened. But I'm not saying that you can all of a sudden snap, especially when you're intoxicated, and do something horrible, because that can happen too. But again, only Joshua knows what happens. So guys, let me know what you think about in the comment section below as to why you think this investigation lasted only 11 days. And not only that, the parents requested that her death be ruled by drowning just to call the search off and close the case. Do you think Joshua knows what happens and he's just walking away scot-free? Or you think that he is not guilty? So let me know in the comment section below. So remember, always keep your goals at the forefront of your mind. Always live in the present, because that's the only way you're gonna live your best life. And I'm out. Peace.